You were in the advanced one with class.
All right. All right, it's 4 o'clock, so let's go ahead and get started.
They don't announce.
Welcome to this panel. Hope you guys like dinosaurs out there. Awesome. We're going to start the panel out with showing a little intro video, and then I'm gonna let these guys introduce themselves, because I'm not the one you're here to see. It's all these awesome people down here. So.
Look at the half-moon-shaped bones on the wrists. No one of these guys learned how to fly. Seriously. Well, maybe dinosaurs have more in common with present-day birds than they do with reptiles. Look at the pubic bone, turned backward, just like a bird. Look at the vertebrae, full of air sacs and hollows, just like a bird. And even the word raptor means bird of prey.
That doesn't look very scary. More like a 6-foot turkey.
A turkey, huh? Okay. Try to imagine yourself in the Cretaceous period. You get your first look at this 6-foot turkey as you enter a clearing. He moves like a bird, lightly bobbing his head. And you keep still because you think that maybe his visual acuity is based on movement like T-Rex, and he'll lose you if you don't move. But no, not Velociraptor. You stare at him, and he just stares right back. And that's when the attack comes, not from the front, but from the side. From the other two raptors, you didn't even know were there. Velociraptor's a pack hunter. You see, he uses coordinated attack patterns, and he is out in force today. And he slashes at you with this 6-inch retractable claw, like a razor, on the middle toe. He doesn't bother to bite your jugular like a lion, see? No. He slashes at you here, or here. Or maybe across the belly, spilling your intestines. The point is, you are alive when they start to eat you. So, try to show a little respect.
Okay.
Okay, I'll introduce myself, and then we'll just go down the panel. And I want you guys to introduce yourself and what got you guys into paleontology, or what you love about it. So I'm Luke Hunsaker. I'm the host of the Nerd Dome podcast and co-founder of the Jurassic Files, just a couple of nerds that love dinosaurs. So yeah.
My name is Scott Madsen. I've been involved with this project since we first found these bones of Utahraptor, and I've always liked dinosaurs and made it a living. Pretty lucky guy for the most part, as far as that goes. Stayed employed digging up dinosaurs most of my life. It's fun.
Hi, I'm Jim Lehane. I write for a website called AIPT Comics. And I was one of those little kids that liked dinosaurs at like 5 years old, and decided that right then and there they wanted to be a paleontologist, and eventually I got my PhD in paleontology.
I'm Amber Dahl. I'm an artist. I also do set design for film and TV, and I also help out with the paleontology lab at Thanksgiving Point. I clean dinosaur fossils there. So, yay! I promise it's really amazing, and I'll post videos of how the process is done with the tools that I use. And I've loved dinosaurs since I was a kid, and I will warn you in advance, I'm a very enthusiastic person, so you will see the passion that comes with it, but it's just been something that has always fascinated me since I was a kid.
Howdy, I'm Jim Kirkland. I'm your state paleontologist. I had the good fortune to, back in 1990, discover Utahraptor to the northeast of Arches National Park. I've been hunting dinosaurs on the Colorado Plateau for just about 45 years now. And basically, Utahraptor has been very, very good for me. That's why I'm a state paleontologist. And I've been loving dinosaurs since my dad brought home a set of toys when I was 5 years old for a business trip and ruined my life.
And I'm Dr. Alan Grant. I'm BJ Nichols. I do I've been helping with the social media and GoFundMe campaign, do graphic design work. I also work as a prep lab volunteer at the Natural History Museum of Utah. I've been doing that for 13 years now. So I get to see a lot of this, meet some interesting people, and I think a lot of my peeps are here. So.
All right, so my first question for you guys is Jurassic Park and the Utahraptor. How are they tied together?
Okay, I guess that's my call. You're all familiar with the movie?
Yeah.
This is the claw from the movie. This was given to me by one of the technicians, Stan Winston Studios, when I had gone to a dinosaur club meeting in Hollywood. A collection of scientists, artists, actors, people that love dinosaurs, love creativity. I had just discovered this thing and had a replica of it, probably a couple months. It would have been in my shirt pocket, passed it around. I got a giant raptor. This guy, who I didn't know, you don't usually know the technicians involved in movies, pulls this out and says, look at this. You discovered Steve's giant velociraptor. We've decided to blow it up. Velociraptor is a small animal. Its claw would be about that long in life, a real velociraptor. Half the size of the one they showed in the show right there. This is what they had for the movie. This is what we discovered, clearly nearly the same size. When we reconstruct it in life, though, this is what it looked like. A little more formidable than the one in the movie, a little biologically useful. We could shave with it. But we learned other things, like these things are feathered. If you can show one of our good feathered animals there. We now know that they had wings. Utahraptor, all the raptors, basically had flying ancestors. Not the best flyers in the world, but you can think of these as, the flightless proto-birds from hell. These things were incredibly vicious animals, but they flew. They're small ancestors, like ostriches have small relatives as well. Someone else want to take on this?
Okay. So I guess the next question is, why do you guys think that Spielberg went with the Velociraptor and the way it looked in the movie versus the way that the animal actually was?
Because he's a beautiful human being that's very in touch with things, apparently. So if you don't know the history behind this, so Steven Spielberg insisted, so really velociraptors are like the size of a dog or a turkey. They're not huge. And when they were making Jurassic Park, Steven Spielberg insisted on making them about 10 feet tall. And it was around later, after the movie was made, is when they discovered it. And so, I don't know, I'm a huge fan of his, and I feel like he just has a way of capturing everything, so maybe he just had some intuition or something that just, he's always wanting to step out of the box. And so I think it was great because it made him look good too, because he's like, see, I told you guys.
Well, he's on the record saying that when we needed to envision these giant raptors so the scientists could then go out and find them. But fortunately, I hadn't heard they were blowing them up, as I told you just a second ago, until I was at this get-together. So we did find them before we knew that they had envisioned these things as much larger animals. But the reason Michael Crichton used the word velociraptor because they actually based it on another animal, Deinonychus, which means terrible claw. And he basically thought they were the same animal as velociraptor. Deinonychus, a little bigger than velociraptor, but still small, say a German Shepherd in size. So not a big animal. Claw about 3 inches long, perhaps. So they blew it up, and he's using scientific work. I always consider the accuracy of Jurassic Park to be related to the distance from Michael Crichton. Michael had made it a love story for paleontologists, and we've all, had a great love for that film because of that. They treated us very, very well.
Jurassic Park at the time was the most scientifically accurate movie based on dinosaurs up until that point. And especially the visual effects of the dinosaurs that they were able to do at the time. You can't find anywhere near as good a visual representation of the dinosaurs back until you go to 1933's King Kong.
Anyone else? No? Okay, cool. So do you think the public perception of dinosaurs would be different had he chosen to go with a more feathered aesthetic for the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park?
Well, at the time we didn't know that they were feathered. So it would be more Jurassic World that the big uproar came out, because Jurassic Park, it was accurate for the time. Jurassic World is not accurate for the time, but it's the question is, do you want it to be a kind of continuation of Jurassic Park, or do you want it to be its own thing?
Yeah, and one thing before the movie came out, Rick Tull, whose book Predatory Dinosaurs of the World was the basis for Michael Crichton's concept of the dromaeosaurs, or raptors, as we all love to call them. Basically, he had already proposed that they were feathered. John Ostrom, the name Deinonychus, proposed that they were feathered. Were tied two birds, Utahraptors, joint. These animals were nearly identical. And so when we found feathered raptors in China, it wasn't a huge surprise. But well before, a decade before the movie, there had been people actually painting reconstructions showing these animals with feathers, kind of fanciful in their depiction. Here's one of the wonderful Chinese specimens. I was there a couple of months ago in China and actually was in a private museum and saw 70 different individual raptors or dromaeosaurs with feathers representing 4 different genera, including some that were as big as me. Some pretty large animals that were probably more on the Therizinosaur line, not the dromaeosaur line, so they were plant eaters, but large feathered animals. The numbers are staggering. This guy's a private museum, Guinness Book of World Records. It has more real dinosaurs than any other place in the world, with something on the order of 1,200 real dinosaurs on exhibit in one place. It's remarkable.
Speaking of the reconstructions of the dinosaurs out there now, what would you guys say is the best reconstruction, like the most scientifically accurate reconstruction of dinosaurs that you've seen?
In movies or?
Movies, documentaries, whatever.
Usually the paleo artists are the ones that are drawing the pictures of the dinosaurs are going to be the most accurate, because they're the most in tune with the paleontologists themselves, and also they're much faster. Movies take a long time to make, and so you're also trying to dish it out to a wider audience, where the paleo artists are just doing it for whoever is paying them, so they want it to be the most accurate for the scientists that they're working for.
Yeah, when we were doing When Dinosaurs Roamed North America, there was a group of 6 of us that were consulting for Discovery Channel, working with their animators up in Montreal. And of the 6 of us, before they would go with anything for that show, they had to find at least 2 of us out of 6 that would agree on something. And sometimes they couldn't do that. So, really, when you're talking about what we think is the most accurate, it really depends on what paleontologists you're talking to.
Well, and I think visually, a great thing to be able to see is if going to local museums. If you don't go to the museums a lot, I mean, the one that at UVU, then also at Thanksgiving Point, the way that they set up the dinosaurs. And of course, I love Utahraptors, but I'm also partial to Parasaurus because that's my first dinosaur I'm working on. But the way that they have them set up at the museums, showing how accurate it was during that time, like and like standing right next to it is pretty powerful when you really sit and think about and realize I'm looking at something that was 145 million years old, and it's when you really take in the concept and understanding of what is it's a lot to take in, but it's like beautiful, I guess you could say. Like it's kind of like a natural high, because it's I don't know, it's just crazy knowing that you can look at something that old in front of you and just try to comprehend. But I love how they set it up in museums, and I think they do a great job.
Kind of going off of that, how accurate are these animals? So if we look at T-Rex, where a lot of us have grown up, T-Rex was this upright standing, its tail dragging on the ground, basically. And that's based off of the reconstruction in the American Museum of Natural History, where they actually had to break the vertebrae to make it do that. And so when they rebuilt the dinosaur around the same time Jurassic Park was coming out, they were able to fix all that, and that's why Jurassic Park, the T-Rex, is more of a flat-lying dinosaur with its legs underneath, because that's the way the spine can actually stand, whereas opposed to before they had to break it to make it stand straight up.
So here in Utah, we have a very good record, paleontological record. Why is that? Why is Utah such a great place to find dinosaurs?
No trees.
Having exposed rock helps. But at the beginning of the Mesozoic, there was a mountain range, the ancestral Rockies, and in specific, the ancestral Uncompahgre Mountains, running pretty much along the Utah-Colorado border. And this thing would have had miles of relief. It would have been like the Sierra Nevadas in front of Death Valley. And sediment was being shed off that to the west in Utah. And the sea, you go to the western side of Utah, that was the ocean, that was the Pacific. So it's shedding off of these mountains, and dinosaurs were living, the very earliest dinosaurs and their ancestors, along the side between this mountain range and the sea. So until you get up into the Jurassic, you have dinosaurs disposed in this wedge coming in from Colorado. But as you get into the Cretaceous, we have a collision with an island arc on the Pacific, creating a mountain range in western part of Utah, the Sevier orogeny, right centered right there on Sevier, Utah. And this had put up a mountain range that at times in the upper Cretaceous were in snow-capped mountains, multi-miles high. And these sediments were shed to the east. And then we had the Western Interior Seaway, a seaway that split our continent into two, Appalachia to the east and Laramidia to the west. And these sediments shedding into this seaway preserved dinosaurs along the coast as well. And Utah was in this seesaw between these two different mountain ranges. And we have the most complete record of anywhere in the world with 27 sequential, non-overlapping dinosaur faunas from the origin of dinosaurs all the way up until their extinction in the North Horn. And most of this we've only discovered in the last, 20 years. When we discovered Utah, we knew 30 dinosaurs in Utah. Now we have about 100. This has been all my work, the University of Utah, Brigham Young University, folks at St. George at the dinosaur track site have been making discovery after discovery. And in Utah, half of all permits issued to do dinosaur research on public land in the whole United States are actually issued for Utah specifically. So we have institutions all over the country working in Utah, discovering new things. North Carolina, the Field Museum, University of Oklahoma, all coming here and discovering new animals all the time. We discovered 10 new dinosaurs in Utah in 2010 alone that were officially named in 2010.
So basically, Utah is the best state ever.
Even going before dinosaurs, the geologic timescale is broken up into these different blocks of Cambrian, Ordovician, and so on. And Utah has fossils from every single one of those divisions, starting back 550 million years up to the present day.
So I think I remember reading somewhere that one of the reasons that Spielberg opted to go with the raptor that he went with based on the science is he also thought that they would be scarier, like the lizard-like dinosaurs were scarier. So, do you think if they would, in the next Jurassic World movie, start putting, fully feathering these dinosaurs, do you guys think it would take away from kind of the scariness, I guess, of it, or would it add to it?
Well, first off, as a 12-year-old kid going to see Jurassic Park, I used to wake up to nightmares of raptors just standing over me. And I still became a paleontologist.
Well, have you ever been chased by chickens? I mean, they can get pretty vicious. Like, some are cute, but man, those beaks, and like when they lift up with the feathers and everything, that's pretty terrifying. So I still feel like that would increase that factor, and especially, I think of Legend of Zelda too, when you're being chased by the chickens that way and trying to get away. So I don't think it would take away from it. I think that it would make it scarier, because it's not just the skin. I mean, you think about how long the feathers are as well, and when they're opening it up, it's even bigger. So.
And then when you kill the chickens in Legend of Zelda, all of them descend on you, just like the raptors.
Well, I was pushing with the folks at Universal for a few years after the first movie, knowing the sequels were coming, that all they were going to have to do was say, oh, it's a good thing we now switched from using frog genetic material as a template to chicken DNA, so now we're getting properly feathered dinosaurs. It would have been a real easy fix within the continuity of the film, because this is where they report that their problem is continuity. I mean, look at what Marvel Comics has done in DC, saying we can't live with continuity for 50 years. It's constraining us too much. So let's just rip it apart and start over. So we can, and that's kind of what they're doing with Jurassic Park. So wait and see. I think what we're going to see in the future there. But in terms of feathered dinosaurs being nasty, I've always envisioned these things. We know they're secondarily flightless. And picture this animal hiding in camouflage like a quail in the forest. And you're going along, and all of a sudden some small ones come chasing out to startle you, so you're not paying attention. Oh, you gotta get away from these little things. And all of a sudden, this monstrous thing leaps out at you, flaring its wings open to grab you. So when their wings are like this, folded like a bird, you would just see the camouflage. But as they reach out, the wing feathers would flare out, big eye spots under the wings. The belly feathers flare up, and a red belly appears. So you've all of a sudden got a face bigger than T-Rex, flying at you with foot-long claws, slashing at you multi times a second, stabbing into you as it screams. They can be pretty scary.
Sweet
Give me
dreams
60
tonight.
seconds with an animating team. Go prove it.
So
I think if we brought some more cassowaries
Yes.
to the United States and had more disemboweling accidents.
I was just gonna say that, like a lot of people, when I talk to them about the feathers on dinosaurs, I just pull up a video of a cassowary chasing like a boar through the forest, and I'm like, that's chasing.
The cassowary has a claw that's about 4 inches long and can kill a person with one kick.
Well, if they put feathers on dinosaurs in Jurassic Park 2 and 3, that would be the reason the movies failed.
Probably. Okay, so you guys have kind of hit on it before, but the Utahraptor block project, can you just kind of tell us like what that is to the people out there?
Well, when we first discovered Utahraptor, we had scrappy material. Brigham Young University had some other scrappy material from other sites. We probably had 4 sites at that time that had Utahraptor stuff, but all pretty scrappy. And we had the good fortune of having a geology student that was working with me, looking at these rocks that Utahraptor occurs in, and I said, look for bones. Found a bone coming out of the ground that described as like a human arm bone, hollow bone, a little over 1 inch in diameter, just sticking out of the rock. We thought that might be worth following up on. So Scott Madsen and I went up there following his pictures. The bone is white, it's in white rock. We spent half a day walking on top of this thing back and forth, trying to match up the pictures of the rocks. Finally, we found this thing and realized it was a foot of a dinosaur sticking out. We came back later and we found a theropod, and eventually we realized we had a bunch of theropods, and at least one was a Utahraptor. Now we realize they're probably all Utahraptor, or at least the majority. So as we've studied this, how come there's so many? There's a plant eater in there that attracted them to this site. And as we worked on the site, was it a river that buried these things at the side of a lake and they had washed up after a flood? We ended up realizing by looking at sediments near Lake Tull in the Colorado River Delta that this is a giant dewatering feature. So basically it turned out this was the first site ever reported where a mass of dinosaurs had been trapped and killed by quicksand. You know, what's cooler than that? A pack of Utahraptors killed in quicksand. Make a great documentary.
While they're cuddling, obviously.
So we got that published in Paleos last year in terms of the environment of preservation of this thing. My right-hand man, and say consider Scott my left-hand man, Don DeBlue has always said if we had known what we were getting into, we would have walked away. Because there's so many skeletons in this mass of quicksand, you couldn't put an ice pick in without hitting the skeleton. You know, we're trying to make, you know, we didn't want to collect a 9-ton block. We wanted to collect smaller bones and skeletons and carry them off the mesa. They're 800 feet up. You know, we don't want to carry gigantic things off. Could not separate it. People say, well, take a rock saw and just cut it. I just didn't have the heart to do that because we would have been chewing up so many skeletons. So we collected this thing intact. And I think we can see a film of some of what we went on through to collect this final block.
We nicknamed this, because it was such a huge block, the mother of all blocks, or Moab, is You might compare this to the opening scene of Jurassic Park where they're brushing away sand on the bones. This is what paleontology is really like.
12 years to get to this.
Did we skip the part where they injected the gun with that shotgun shell like in Jurassic Park?
This trailer blew out a couple of tires on the way back.
And the craziest thing is that was not sped up at all.
National Geographic did a nice show on this. And I think you can still get to it if you do National Geographic Utahraptor. They still have a link to the video clip when they came out and covered our collection of this thing. And Discovery Canada covered it as well, did actually a better program, but unfortunately they took it down off their website. So they've given it access to it so we can share it with donors to the project individually. But I just was told as they were bringing that off that 800-foot mesa, someone comes running up to me, it's starting to crack. You know, and my stomach just, no, and I walked the death march down the hill. And there are a couple in the outer part of the plaster, hairline cracks that you can barely see. You don't need a magnifying glass. But I'll tell you, when they're saying it's cracking open, oh man! I could barely watch it. I mean, when they first moved it, I had to turn away. You know, too much of my life was in that. I knew what we had, and I could not stand it.
Okay, I got one more question before we open it up to the floor for questions. You guys can line up at that microphone over there if you have any. Hard one. What is your favorite dinosaur?
Actually, a Triassic dinosaur called Coelophysis. Anybody here ever hear of it? Whoa! Look at that!
Nice. So my favorite dinosaur goes back to Jurassic Park. And there's a scene in Jurassic Park where this guy tries to steal stuff in a shaving tin can, and he eventually gets eaten by this dinosaur with these ear flaps. And ever since that moment, I looked at it and goes, that's really stupid. And find out that no, it doesn't have those little ear flaps. But yeah, Dilophosaurus has been my favorite dinosaur ever since that moment. And I ended up drawing a life-size reconstruction of it when I was in elementary school because of the movie.
This is my favorite too.
That's a mean question.
I know. I said it was a hard one.
Well, I love T-Rex. I do. But because I helped out with the Utahraptor project and also working on the Barosaurus, I love those as well. And especially because with Barosaurus, knowing how it died and like, I almost sob every time I work on it because I'm like, I'm so sorry. And it's just, but
Grave robber.
Yeah.
Well, you'd think it'd be Utahraptor, got my job for me. It's been very good to me. But my favorite dinosaur is a thing called Gastonia burgei, which is the best known coelacanthine ankylosaur in the world. Utahraptor, you'd say, is the nastiest meat-eating dinosaur. Utahraptor is the most heavily defended dinosaur that ever lived, with huge foot-long spines on its back, sticking out of its shoulders, tail plates like shark fins going down. If you grabbed his tail and then whipped it, it would cut your fingers off. This thing was the most common dinosaur when Utahraptor lived. And I think Utahraptor would walk by and just shake his head and just say, just roughage.
And I think mine would be, it's tough because right now I'm working on a not dinosaur. And it's on all the dinosaur kits, or at least its relative is Dimetrodon. I'm working on a Spinacodon. And I bonded with it over several years of prepping it.
What do you mean it's not a dinosaur? It's in the kits.
It's in the kits, yes. It's a stem mammal, so it's not. And it was before the stinking dinosaurs. Now the dinosaurs are great. So it's. I think Kosmoceratops is my favorite. He's got the dreadlocks coming over the frill with. They called him the horniest dinosaur on the planet. And he's a Utah dinosaur. We've got like some of the best ceratopsians that come from the Grand Staircase, one of the best national monuments on the planet. So I think it would be Kosmoceratops for me.
Yeah, again, if anyone has any questions, dinosaur questions at all, Scott won't bite.
Well, could we first show a real quick thing on preparation?
Of course.
What Scott's doing, why we're trying to raise this money. Like, put this on, and then Scott could say what's involved with this.
So this block is sitting down at Thanksgiving Point Museum of Ancient Life today. This is a little tour of the block. Lower jaw, that's the head of the femur right there. I'll let myself talk. There they are. Hello.
Stop interrupting yourself.
Look at those teeth.
Serrations on the edge.
So those are actually only about an inch long.
Serrations, tentacles on the edge. And then you can see its tentacles.
So a whole road series, babies, juveniles,
This
and
guy
adults.
can drop down.
Mm-hmm. That's the biggest tool I use. It's a little pneumatic hand tool about so big, and the tip of that vibrates at a really high velocity, and a very gentle jet of air comes out and moves the rock grains away as I'm moving the tool across there. We deal with a thing called separation when you're preparing fossils, which kind of describes how easily the rock separates from the bone and how cleanly it separates. And this particular block is kind of a preparer's nightmare from that point of view. Some of the bone actually has this kind of a reddish sheet around it that you can see there, which is almost a halo around some of the bone. And it serves as a warning that you're just about to hit something. But probably half of the bone doesn't have any warning at all. And with a little pneumatic tool like that, it's really easy to screw up. And the fact is, every time I look at this work that I've done on this in the last year, I cringe. The learning curve on this is really, really steep. It's very difficult preparation, but it's very rewarding. We barely, literally scratched the surface on this block. You're looking at a chunk of rock here that's 10 feet long, about 8 feet wide, and about 3 feet thick. And this is going to take, as Jim said, pretty much everywhere you try and move in on it, you run into more bone. And so it's kind of a preparer's nightmare and the greatest thing in the world at the same time. It's really cool. You come down and see it, please.
It's really fun watching him, seeing how much he concentrates, because he has such a delicate touch. Because using those scribes can be, they're like the most therapeutic thing for me, but it can be scary, especially when you're like, oh my gosh, did I break something? And you have to try and like puzzle it and put it back together. But you do a great job on preparing that, so.
It looks horrible to me, but eventually, yeah, no, it's pretty amazing. So really what we're trying to set up with this project is a situation where we've accumulated enough money to buy some basic tools. And in fact, what I'm working with there is this, used to be a microscope stand, microscope for medical equipment. And we found some cheap sources for some really good equipment. But we're just now getting to where we can attach a micro video camera to this thing, so we can take pictures and video of the work as it's happening. And I don't see any reason we can't actually stream this thing live if there's enough interest in it. Sometimes it's watching the grass grow. I mean, moving little grains of rock can get pretty tedious and tiresome. But when you run into something like that, those little jaws there, and you see one tooth after another kind of showing up, it's visually really pretty amazing. It's a lot of fun.
They have TV in Sweden, I believe, which is called slow TV, where you look at like
Sounds bad.
cameras attached to the front of trains just going through snow. So you can advertise it to them.
So, how can people help with this project?
Well, Scott, you're the leader of the
Basically, yeah. I mean, right after we got this enormous block, after 10 years of field work, 12 years, finally get this thing a home with a floor that's sturdy enough to hold that weight. That's 18,000 pounds of rock right there. I was laid off from the Utah Geological Survey, and at the time we really didn't have any equipment either to start this project. And times are tough. I mean, it's really hard to get money for science today. Basic research it's just very, very difficult to get money. And so we decided we'd try something completely different and simply go directly to the public. Instead of using your tax dollars to fund this, we're asking you for help. And so that's what the GoFundMe campaign is about. We anticipate this taking probably at least 5 years. And what I would really like to see happen is we end up with 2 microscope setups here, so I can train somebody, hopefully train somebody else, so we can get this thing moving faster. So there's room for another person at least there. Somebody's volunteering.
GoFundMe.com/Utahraptor.
Well, another thing as well is there's another paleontologist that works there. His name is Rick Hunter, and I'm actually collaborating with him that we're going to be setting up times where we can give private tours to be able to come back and see it. And I promise, like, I know looking at pictures sometimes it's kind of like, yeah, that's cool, but when you actually stand next to it, my first time going back, I ugly sobbed. Like, I mean, it was bad. And Rick wasn't in there. Like, I had another friend that was in there, and I just sobbed like crazy. And then he walked in, and I'm like, hey, you know, like makeup running all over. But it's just,
it's intense. I mean, when you're just looking at, you can see like the baby raptors on top and you're seeing their teeth and everything, and it's like, holy cow, I cannot believe that I am standing next to something that was in my state, and it's incredible. And so if it's something that you would ever be interested in with doing private tours, it's really incredible. So that's something that we will be setting up, and there will be future events as well too to help out with the project. So
thank you.
Well, since no one's lining up for questions, look at that.
Yeah, this is your chance.
You just need
Hit us.
You
Hit
just
us
need to
hard.
ask 3 times.
I know.
Beetlejuice.
I like this guy. Go ahead.
Okay. So this question goes to Jim Kirtland. Big fan, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I've seen some TV shows like Jurassic. But anyways, my question is, how fast do Utahraptors grow?
Well, that's one of the things we'll be able to test in this block. Probably on the order of how mammals of a similar size. So probably be an adult, lived to maybe 25, 30 years. Be mature to reproduce maybe in 10 or 12. But until we can get enough material to cut young bones.
How fast?
How fast they grow.
No.
How fast do they go?
Oh, they
No,
go.
I said grow.
Oh, yeah.
So he got right.
So basically, we're going to eventually cut the bones. We'll cast it. Look at the lines of arrested growth in the limb bones from young ones, juveniles, and the adult, and we'll be able to create growth curves for Utahraptor to say how fast it grew per year for its entire life. We may have 30 animals in that block. 9 on the outside right now.
BJ, can you put on a picture of that little pre-maxilla with a penny?
Yeah, the babies. Too many choices. And in terms of how fast they could run, Utahraptor's built like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Massive bones. If you've been down to our booth and seen the scale of the bones on that leg of Utahraptor, those massive bones are anchoring massive muscles. In the new brain case that's come out of the quarry, muscle attachments that are pimples on Velociraptor as big as my thumb sticking out of the bone. So this thing, the back of its head was anchored by huge muscles down onto the neck. So it was definitely employing its jaws and teeth to some effect in the way it was hunting. Because these muscles are not there just for show, they're there to engage. So, probably next question. Moving along. Thanks. Good question.
All right, so earlier you were speaking about scientific accuracy within major media and things like that.
Sure.
There's 2 major products that I would like to see if you are familiar with and get your thoughts on. The first of which is a toy line called Beasts of the Mesozoic. They did a Dromaeosaur series. And
All series, brilliant.
Yep.
And that is one of the big things on our GoFundMe site, because he was trying for, I think, $50,000. He got $500,000 raised for those toys, and they're brilliant. I'm in love. Can't afford them because of the paleontologist, but I'm in love. I mean, because they're so well done, and we've talked, and I've put lots of hearts on those pictures of that line as it's been, shown. Wonderful stuff.
And then the other one was Magic the Gathering's new set is called Ixalan, and several dinosaurs are featured there.
I haven't seen those, so I really...
Then I would welcome you to look at that one.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Hi. So, did I get 2 questions or just have to limit to 1? 2 specific dinosaur questions?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I've been driving past the billboards all summer.
Nothing to do with us. I wish they put our funded site on those billboards.
That would have been awesome.
Would have been awesome,
I
yeah.
went
They
there,
talked to us.
It was just about billboards. It wasn't about anything else.
It's totally about billboards.
Yeah, if you go to the website, it has their own advertisement at the top of the website, and then you scroll down and get a little bit of information on the dinosaurs.
A little bit.
If you're the guy like myself that named Utahraptor and see how many toy Utahraptors are out there, how many books there are about Utahraptor, etc., etc., it just makes my jaw drop, and none of it has ever benefited our understanding of the animal.
So, I gotta ask, what about Utahraptor?
Utahraptor is about the same size, maybe a little taller, more lightly built, a little bit longer legs. Claws are like exactly the same size. I mean, you know, this is a great picture. I got it here. You put up the Utahraptor stuff I gave you. But Utahraptor, I got a nice picture showing Utahraptor claw, this claw next to the Utahraptor claw. Two big claws, so would be the dominant part of the image. Two big claws.
We've got 5 minutes left, so let's.
So anyway, it's real scrappy. They've studied those rocks for 150 years. That's all they found, a handful of bones in the claws. So I'm not denying the animal's real. But for Utahraptor, we probably have 30 animals, you know, total in 6 sites. It's a dominant meat eater in the rocks it's found in.
Thank you.
Hello?
Hey.
Hi. So you guys were talking earlier about the scientific accuracy of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
But I didn't hear you guys mention about the sounds that the dinosaurs made. I know that we can't really get a accurate record of how they would sound, but I was just wondering what are your thoughts of how they might have sounded like, or if there's any modern avians or reptiles that might have similar traits that could.
Well, the one animal that they've done work on where they've actually tried to reconstruct the sound of, it's Parasaurolophus, one of the big crested hadrosaurs, the ambiosaurs with this big tube crest. But it's this very low subsonic thing. But people say, well, this thing might have been able to, bellow at you subsonically and turn your brain to jelly. Good thought, but whatever. But there's also been some work where people have been studying some of the structure of the throat, the hyoid bones, saying these things probably sounded more like ducks.
Oh.
So there's these, based on the science. And I'm not saying I agree, but they're, pictures of T-Rex quacking. So the range of possibilities is probably pretty good.
It's one of those that I enjoy the sounds that they make in the movies. And you can't really disprove it because it's a lot of soft tissue. So I go with it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm starting to wonder of something when you mentioned about the Deinonychus. How can you tell the difference between the Utahraptor and the Deinonychus?
Well, they lived at different times. We actually have Deinonychus material in Utah, but vernal. They're from rocks of Aptian Albian age. It's a much smaller animal, and it's just not built with the same leg proportions. The skull is much smaller muscle attachments. As I've said, the muscle attachment of Utahraptor are massive. It's a much huger animal, and we have young Utahraptors too. So we know, these things are not Deinonychus growing bigger. Jack Warner, Montana. Many of you probably know Jack Warner, famous guy. He's always said, "Oh, Utahraptor's just a big Deinonychus." Skeletally, there's a lot of features that are different. And right now, I think Deinonychus is actually in a different subfamily. His tail has got bombed rods, making it extremely stiff. Utahraptor is a dromaeosaurine and not a velociraptorine. And because of that, its tail is more loosely constructed. But there are a number of characters like that. As we learn about Utahraptor more, I think we're going to show that dromaeosaurines and velociraptorines were in parallel. And all the big ones seem to be dromaeosaurines, like Utahraptor.
This is kind of a paleo-art question, so I don't know if that would be Ambrose.
I work a lot of artists.
So as we kind of have moved past like the Bacher era shrink wrap reconstructions that we've been seeing a lot of, there's been a lot of soft tissue speculation, but I noticed, for example, one of the images you guys were just skipping through, showed some sort of dromaeosaur, I think it was a velociraptor with like beak, it's like a beak hard enamel type casing on that. I'm not aware. Is there any kind of?
There's no evidence in terms of the active debate on lips versus no lips. I tend to prefer no lips myself, but I can't tell you for sure as a scientist.
Doesn't really seem like they're chewing. So.
Yeah, and well, the ornithischians have cheeks. I'm convinced of that.
Yeah.
We have some that have, material preserved where the cheeks would be. But in terms of the theropods, when their mouth is closed, the teeth from the upper jaw overlap almost the entire jaw. And were those teeth exposed to the outside? Some people really hate that thought because, you know, of the atmospheric, you know, effect on the enamel of the teeth. And so they want to have lips covering that, or the teeth coming down and lips from the jaw that would overlap them.
Except crocodiles.
Yeah, I think they're probably more like crocodiles personally.
So I guess I was just wondering.
One of these days we're going to get a face with skin on it. We get a lot of mummies.
I mean,
somewhere out of Grand Staircase we'll get a face of a dinosaur.
I'm wondering if you guys have like, is there an image of someone's art you could just show us that is like your favorite or preferred reconstruction at the present?
Probably not on this. If you're at my place, I mean, I got tens of thousands of images of dinosaurs on my portable hard drive. You know, I could go over a lot of things with you if we got together in person.
Thank you for your question. We are actually out of time, but you guys are at what, booth 2341?
Yeah, and definitely chat with me, and you can chat with me here as soon as we're out here. You can just talk to me.
All right, guys, thank you for coming. And
Thanks, guys.